The cobblestones of High Street were slick with rain and the unnatural, oily residue of dark magic. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Elian Thorne, a sixth-year Hufflepuff who had never scored higher than an acceptable in defense against the dark arts, was currently crouched behind a shattered water trough, his chest heaving so hard he thought his ribs might snap. 7. There were 7 of them. 7 silver masks glinting in the moonlight. 7 wands raised with military precision, blocking both ends of the alleyway. Behind Elian, huddled in the mud, were 3 second-year students who had snuck out for sweets and found a war zone instead. 180 seconds. That was the estimate. The anti-apparition wards the Death Eaters had erected were crude. The Aurors would tear them down in 3 minutes. But in a duel, 3 minutes is an eternity. It is enough time to die a dozen times over. Elian looked down at his hand. He wasn't holding a sleek, a polished piece of mahogany or vine wood. He was clutching a gnarl of rough, unvarnished blackthorn that looked more like a piece of kindling than a magical focus. It was thick, uneven, and ugly. They called it the Firewood wand. He could feel the core, a dragon heartstring that the wandmaker had warned was too large for the casing, pulsing against his palm like a second erratic heartbeat. It was hot to the touch. It always was. A bolt of green light shattered the corner of the trough, showering Elian in stone dust. He flinched, checking his mental inventory. He knew 4 defensive spells. He knew 3 hexes. And he had a wand that had become the laughingstock of the Hufflepuff common room because it couldn't cast a precise levitation charm to save its life. Every time he tried to thread a needle with his magic, the wand just poured raw power out like a burst pipe. It was a blunt instrument in a world of scalpels. But as the Death Eaters advanced, tightening the noose around the weeping children, Elian realized something. This wasn't a classroom. This wasn't a duel for points. This was a street fight in a narrow alley. And maybe, just maybe, a bludgeon was exactly what he needed. If you want to know how this forgotten wizard turned a useless piece of firewood into the only thing standing between 3 children and the dark arts, stay with me until the end of this story. The tallest Death Eater, a man whose movements were liquid and practiced, stepped forward. He didn't even bother shouting a curse. He just flicked his wand silently. A purple jet of flame roared toward them. Elian didn't think. He didn't try to cast a Protego. A standard shield charm required balance and focus, and his wand would likely just create a wobbly disc that would shatter instantly. Instead, Elian thrust his gnarly stick forward and screamed the incantation for a banishing charm. Depulso. It was a simple spell, meant to push objects away. But when channeled through the Firewood wand, it didn't just push. The tip of Elian's wand erupted with a sound like a cannon shot. There was no beam of light, just a violent, invisible concussion of air. The spell didn't hit the purple fire. It hit the air in front of it, the cobblestones below it, and the walls on either side. The sheer volume of raw magic slammed into the incoming curse, shattering the purple flames into harmless sparks. But the recoil was so strong it threw Elian back into the mud. The Death Eater paused, tilting his head. He looked less afraid and more confused, as if a rabbit had just fired a musket at him. Flash back to 3 months ago. Charms classroom, afternoon sun. Professor Flitwick was standing over Elian's desk, looking down at a feather that was not floating, but was instead smouldering. Elian's face was bright red. A Ravenclaw boy in the next row snickered, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's not a wand, Thorn, it's a torch."
"You're going to set the castle on fire before you graduate." Even the Hufflepuffs had laughed nervously. The wand was defective. It had no finesse. It leaked magic. Elian had spent nights trying to sand it down, trying to whisper to it, trying to tame the dragon inside the wood. But it refused to be precise. It only knew how to roar. Back in the alley, the confusion on the Death Eater's face vanished, replaced by irritation. 2 of them moved now, flanking left and right. The clock was ticking. 150 seconds left. Elian scrambled to his feet. His arm was numb from the recoil. The children behind him were whimpering. He couldn't aim at the Death Eaters. If he missed, the wide spray of his magic might hit the students or bring a building down on top of them. He had to change the terrain. Red light flashed, a stunner aimed at his chest. Elian slashed his wand downward, aiming not at the spell, but at a puddle of rainwater between them. Glacius, a freezing charm. Usually, this would create a patch of ice. With the Firewood wand, it was like a cryo-bomb went off. The puddle didn't just freeze, it exploded upward in a jagged wall of flash-frozen spikes 3 feet high. The stunner impacted the ice, shattering it into a cloud of diamond dust that obscured the alley. "Hold fire!" one of the Death Eaters barked. The voice was rough, muffled by the mask. "The boy is unstable." Elian didn't wait. He couldn't see them through the mist of ice crystals, and they couldn't see him. That leveled the playing field. He knew exactly where the walls were. He pointed his wand at the brickwork of the Zonko's joke shop building to his left and shouted, "Reducto!" A normal Reducto curse drills a hole. Elian's curse hit the brickwork like a wrecking ball. An entire section of the wall detonated, showering the left side of the alley in heavy debris. He heard a crunch and a shout of pain as a Death Eater was buried under a pile of masonry. 1 down, 6 to go. 120 seconds. The remaining Death Eaters weren't playing anymore. The air filled with the humming hornet sound of killing curses. Green light crisscrossed the smoke, missing Elian by inches. He dropped to his stomach, crawling through the mud. He needed to get closer. His wand had no range. The magic dissipated too fast over distance because it was so uncontrolled. He had to be in their faces. He could feel the heat of the wood burning his palm, the dragon heartstring vibrating so hard it felt like it was trying to burrow into his skin. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts is already touching your heart and you'd like to help keep these stories alive, you can support the channel by clicking the thanks button below the video.
Every little bit helps me continue bringing you more hidden tales of courage and magic." Elian saw a pair of boots through the clearing dust. He lunged forward, pointing the wand directly at the ground beneath the Death Eater's feet. Bombarda! The pavement disintegrated. It wasn't a precision strike. It was an eruption. Cobblestones turned into shrapnel. The Death Eater was thrown backward, his shield charm useless against the physical onslaught of flying rocks. He slammed into a lamppost and slumped over. 2 down. But now they knew where he was. A whip of fire lashed out, wrapping around Elian's ankle. He screamed as the heat seared through his trouser leg. He was dragged across the wet stones, his fingernails clawing for purchase. He was being pulled toward the center of the street, right into the firing line of the remaining 5. "Make it quick," one of them sneered, raising a wand. Elian looked at the wand in his hand. It was glowing red-hot now, smoking in the rain. It was overloading. He had pushed too much magic through a conduit that wasn't built to handle it. It was going to break. And if it broke while he was casting, the backlash would probably kill him. But he was dead anyway. He didn't cast a hex.
He didn't cast a curse. He remembered the laughter in the common room. "You're going to set the castle on fire!" Elian gripped the burning wood with both hands, pointed it at the center of the group, and poured every ounce of fear, anger, and magic he had into a simple Lumos. Lumos is the first spell a child learns. It creates a gentle light. But Elian didn't want a light. He wanted a star. The wand tip didn't just glow. It went supernova. A sphere of blinding white-hot magnesium light exploded outward, expanding with physical force. It wasn't just bright, it was deafening. The sheer intensity of the radiance seared the retinas of everyone facing him. The Death Eaters screamed, clutching their eyes, their masks offering no protection against the sudden, absolute brilliance. The magical flare overloaded their sensory charms, blinding them instantly. 90 seconds. Elian scrambled up, his leg throbbing. The Death Eaters were stumbling, firing spells wildly into the air. He was the only one who knew where everyone was, because he had his eyes squeezed shut. He moved by sound. He ran toward the nearest gasp of pain. He didn't use magic. He swung the Firewood wand like a club, feeling it connect with a masked face with a sickening crack. 3 down. He spun, sensing movement. Expelliarmus! At point-blank range, the disarming charm didn't just remove the wand. The shockwave threw the Death Eater across the alley, smashing him through the window of the post office. 4 down. The wand in his hand gave a sickening crack. The wood had split down the middle. The core was exposed, glowing fiercely. He had 1 spell left before the wand disintegrated completely. 3 enemies remained, blinking, trying to regain their vision. They were grouped together, back to back, defensive shields raised. Elian knew he couldn't break a triple shield, not with a broken wand. He couldn't go through them. He looked up. Heavy rain soaked his face. Above the Death Eaters hung a massive cast iron sign for the 3 broomsticks swaying in the wind. It was heavy, heavy enough. Elian pointed his dying wand not at the wizards, but at the rusted chain holding the sign. He didn't have a spell for cutting metal. He just pushed raw, chaotic magic out of the split wood one last time. The wand exploded in his hand. Splinters dug into his palm, but the bolt of uncontrolled energy hit the chain. It didn't cut it, it melted it. The iron sign, weighing hundreds of pounds, plummeted. The Death Eaters, still disoriented and focusing their shields forward, never looked up. The crash shook the ground like a tremor. Dust and silence filled the alley. Elian fell to his knees, clutching his bleeding hand. He stared at the pile of twisted iron and the unconscious figures beneath it. 7. Pop, pop, pop. The air filled with the sharp cracks of apparition. 10 aurors materialized at the end of the street, wands drawn, ready for a siege. They froze. They looked at the devastated alleyway, the craters in the pavement, the frozen spikes melting in the rain, and the 7 incapacitated Death Eaters. Then they looked at the single, muddy Hufflepuff boy kneeling in the center of the carnage, holding 2 halves of a smoking stick. "Get a medic!" someone shouted. Elian didn't hear them. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him cold and shaking. A hand touched his shoulder. It was one of the second years, a little girl with pigtails, staring at him with eyes as wide as galleons. She didn't look at him like he was a joke. She looked at him like he was a giant. Later, the official report would describe the incident as a confused skirmish where structural failure caused the defeat of the Dark Wizards. The Ministry didn't like admitting that a 16-year-old with a defective wand had done their job for them in under 3 minutes. Elian didn't get an Order of Merlin. He got a week in the hospital wing and a new wand from Ollivander's, one that was polished, precise, and completely obedient. But sometimes, late at night in the Hufflepuff common room, the younger students would ask him to tell the story. They didn't laugh anymore. They listened. Because Elian Thorne had taught them a lesson that isn't found in any textbook. Magic isn't always about having the sharpest blade or the cleanest spell. Sometimes, when the darkness is closing in and the odds are 7 to 1, you don't need a scalpel. You need a sledgehammer. And you need the courage to swing it when everyone else tells you it's useless. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts touched your heart, tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Elian's place? Like the video, share it with another Harry Potter fan, and subscribe to hear more hidden stories of courage, magic, and impossible odds. Sometimes the broken wand casts the brightest light.